What's up YouTube? Brian here, back again with another video, and today I'm devoting this entire video to just nerd out and go really deep on one specific bait, a bait category really, which is the DEPS Sakamata Shad. I want to go into the hype around them, my experience, because I want to say I have well over 100 hours logged on this bait specifically, just literally throwing this one bait or this type of bait, like the different sizes. But I have a lot of time on the water with these. I grabbed a bunch of packs of these early last year. I threw this bait all of last summer, all of last fall, and then I've thrown it literally all year this year. So I have literally 2 seasons of using this bait a ton. And so I have a lot of information and a lot of thoughts and opinions that I'm going to put out to you. And so if you're new to the Sakamata Shad, you're going to learn a lot of things about this bait. Or if you actually have some packs of Sakamata Shads and you're not really sure like what to do with them or what situations to use them in, I'm going to go through all that. I'm going to go through some of my favorite jig heads, because let me tell you, I've been trying tons of scoping heads. This is a bag full of just all sorts of different sizes, brands of scoping heads, and I have ran through most of them. And I have my best ofs right here in front of me, and I'm going to tell you what are my favorite heads, what are heads you should be buying for this. I also want to go through my setup, because I have a couple different setups devoted to throwing the Sakamata Shad. This one specifically is the DEPS rod that they designed for strolling these baits. It's called the Gain Element Shaking Rod. I'm going to go into this a little bit. I have some catch footage I'm going to show you guys. I also have a video I want to show you from DEPS themselves. So we're going to dive into all this. But first, if you're not following me on Instagram, I would appreciate if you do. Give me a follow. This is where I post a lot of my on the water content. And if you've been following me on Instagram, you know how much I love this bait, because I'm always talking about it. I'm always posting fish that I've caught with it. I'm always talking about the old trusty Sakamata Shad. So follow me on Instagram. Would really appreciate it. Thank you. All right, I don't really know where to dive in on this topic, but let's just start out with the bait itself. So what is the Sakamata Shad? So it's essentially a fluke bait. It's got a hollow body, like most flukes. Its kind of secret sauce is in these wings on the side. And these wings do some really interesting things. I'm going to talk about what the bait actually does in a little bit. But so first off, it comes in a lot of sizes. I think 4-inch. There's a little 2-inch one. There's a 4, 5, 6. But I would say the most popular versions of this Sakamata Shad is absolutely the 5-inch. This is the one that's the hardest to get. It's probably the most universally thrown. There's also the 4-inch, which I have right here. So I have the 5 and the 4. So let's quick do some size comparisons. I will say the size differences between this bait are completely dramatic. They're absolutely different baits when you actually hold them up next to each other. So we got the 4-inch. We got the 5-inch, and then we got the 6-inch, the Big Daddy. Well, compared to this, I know they make bigger ones. I think there's like a 7. But what's interesting is when you go from the 5 to the 6, this is a much bigger body bait, much heavier. The difference between the 6 and 4 is like really dramatic. I mean, this is, it's basically like a crappie panfish bait, in comparison, right? So if you're on the fence of which size to go for, the 5-inch is definitely the starting point. It's most popular. But if you want to throw bigger baits, you have bigger fish down in the South, Florida, wherever there's actually bigger bass that want a bigger profile, you definitely want to go with the 6-inch or above. And I will say the 4-inch is a great all-arounder. I've caught big bass with this, but the 4-inch itself is kind of a secret weapon for me for crappie fishing and walleyes. This is an excellent walleye bait. I throw this down into walleye schools and can get them to trigger. This catches me big crappies. If I know crappies are hanging out on a tree or something, I can drop this in front of it or over the top, and it's definitely going to get bit. So sneaky bait for other species of fish besides bass. Definitely don't sleep on having a couple packs of 4-inchers in your boat if you do like to target other fish. Crappies, big bluegills, pretty much anything is going to eat this size. But I definitely have a lot of success with walleyes on that. Okay, so the 5-inch. A lot of people like to just rig this as a fluke. It kind of originated as a regular old fluke bait. So all you fluke throwers who love this bait, keep doing it. It's great. Throwing an EWG hook. They have a heavyweight version of this. It has even more salt, so it sinks a little faster. I do have a couple packs of those. I didn't bring them out for this video. But the regular DEPS Sakamata Shad does have a decent amount of salt. They do make more salted versions of it for those weightless presentations if you want the bait to kind of get down and have a drop like a Senko. Anyway, the big thing that made this bait take off is how excellent of a strolling bait is. If you don't know what a mid-strolling technique is, and if you're new to this world, and you're like, what is strolling? I hear about it all the time. Strolling is essentially when you throw a bait out it drops down into a certain area of the water column that you want it to be, whether it's low, high, wherever you want that bait to be. You start shaking your rod, and then the bait will start rolling side to side. And as it's rolling, you can, slowly reel the reel in, and you're going to get that rolling action. So mid-strolling is, rolling the bait. The Sakamata Shad is excellent at rolling. It's actually excellent at a couple things. So I'm going to talk about this up front. What are the superpowers of the DEPS Sakamata Shad? Why is this bait so much better than, all the other strolling baits out there, all the other scented jerk shads, and the all the other types of baits in this category of like the soft plastic jerk bait? What makes the Sakamata Shad special? And now my 100 hours of experience on this bait, I will say there's two things about this bait that make it absolutely special. Number one, and this is one that people don't talk about so much whenever I've watched a bunch of Sakamata videos in preparation for making this video, and one topic you never hear about is the fall. This thing has an amazing fall because of those wings. When you throw this bait out, now I'm going to talk a lot in the context of using forward-facing sonar on a boat. I have a Skeeter bass boat. I have Active Target 2 that's really dialed in. I'm really good at scoping. And throwing this bait out and watching how it does its thing in the water, I've logged a lot of hours on this thing. And what happens is when you throw this bait and it hits the water, if you're using the right size jig head, and when I'm saying right size, I mean a light jig head. The number one thing I want you to take away from this video is if you're using the DEPS Sakamata Shad, try and use the lightest head you can for the situation you're in, whether it's wind, depth, whatever. Whatever the lightest head you can comfortably get away with is what you want to throw on this, because you do not want to affect the fall action on this bait by using too heavy of a head. When I say that, what I mean is when this bait hits the water, you throw it, you make a cast, it has a swirling death action, much like a tube. This thing is like a tube, but in a minnow form. And when it hits the water, you can see it. It kind of goes, it's a little erratic, it kind of swirls, it kind of does its own thing, and it drops straight down, but it has kind of an erratic fall, but it's going to stay where you throw it. So when you get good at reading your forward-facing sonar and you go, I want to make a cast, I want to go 40 feet this way, I know there's either a fish or a stump or a rock pile or something there that I want this bait to kind of swirl down at. If you get good at making those casts, you're going to hit that on the dot, and this thing is going to have a really chill, swirling spiral as it comes down. And guess what that does? That attracts fish. I am constantly shocked at how many fish come up out of a crib or come up off a rock or swim over just to look at this thing as it's falling, because that slow death fall, that dying fish fall, really makes fish curious. Like you'll get, even if they're not an eater fish, like they're not ready to bite and they're not hungry or in a feeding mode, they're still going to come over and be like, what is that thing? Oh, check this out. So I've had this bait just reveal fish. Like I've thrown it over, like I'll see a fish crib out in Wisconsin. I'll throw that Sakamata Shad in front of the crib or behind the crib or on top of the crib. And as it's swallowing out, I just see a big dot go, whoop, comes out. Like, what is that? Curious. And it lets me know if there's fish there. Sometimes, they don't always bite this bait. This bait is, there's no such thing as a bait that just every fish is going to come unglued and eat. But this thing is the attraction power on the fall of this bait is fantastic. Number one, amazing fall. Use lightweight heads. I'm going to talk about terminal tackle and the heads that I like to use, but let me just up front say I really like 1/8. 1/8 is kind of like my standard size that I throw on every day. So like I don't know what size head I want to throw or weight. I'm just always going to use a 1/8 to start. And if I can get away with going lighter than 1/8, I will. And if I have to go heavier than 1/8, I will, because I'll talk about those situations where you're going to adjust the head size. But by default, I like to use a 1/8. If I can get away with lighter, I'm going to go with lighter. And then I want that light head to just let that bait do its thing on that slow death, and it's really like a tube. Second thing that's great about this bait, the control that you can have on this bait if you use the right rod is amazing. You can almost make this thing hover in place if you got a rod with a soft enough tip. So the meaning that if the fish is right here and I throw this bait and this bait goes boop, hits the water, does this death spiral, and here's the fishy, he's right here, fish swimming around. So if this bait comes down and it's right there, and when you can stop this bait on a dime in the water column and just start shaking your tip, And that bait isn't going to pull forward unless you're like actually pulling it forward, or you have too stiff of a rod and when you shake it, it's pulling it. But if you use a really soft rod and you get good at that light shaking, you can let that bait literally just hover in place and just twitch back and forth and really keep that bait in the strike zone for a long time. So what I love about this bait is the control you get in the column with your sonar. So if you're a forward-facing sonar nerd and you're accurate with this thing, you can get this bait out right in front of that fish in that strike zone and just let it sit there. And you can shake it, and it really doesn't pull forward very much. It just can sit and roll in one place. I call it like the Harrier jet of strolling baits. So if you want it to be in a specific place for a specific amount of time, this is the bait, especially with using a slightly lighter head than what you probably think you need to throw. I do notice that a lot of bass anglers, like when they're getting into the strolling technique and they're pinging a minnow for bass, they're using like 1/4 ounce heads, 3/8 ounce heads, really heavy heads. And I've thrown this with heavier heads just to see what happens. It just sinks like a rock. When you're shaking it, you're literally going up and you're pulling it along. It's not staying in the strike zone. You're not getting that nice death spiral on this bait. So my point is, if you're using this bait and you're spending the money, these things are like $11 for a 6-pack. If you're going to spend the money and you're going to want to fish these effectively, use a lighter head, use a soft tip rod, and get good at making accurate casts to where you need it to drop. And then when it gets to that spot in the water column, get used to pulling that line a little tight and just giving that little shake with your wrist, get that tip going, and just you're going to know that this bait is sitting there doing this in its one spot. So those are, to me, the two secret powers of this bait, is the fall and the control and how easy it is to keep it in the place you want on your cast. Now, there's a couple casting tips I want to talk about with this, and I actually have it in a video. But first, when I bought my first pack of Sakamata Shads, and I'm like, I want to know the right way to do this stuff. The first thing I did was I went to DEPS and their social media accounts and I watched the video. And this is the most game-changing video to me. When I watched this video, I got it and I mimicked this, and it's been going great since. So I'm going to cut over to my laptop real quick and we're going to watch this together. This is the DEPS video on how they suggest you fish the Sakamata. So we're going to watch this for a sec.
My name is Masayuki Matsushita, DEPS Pro. This is a Sakamata Shad 4-inch, 5-inch, 6-inch, 7-inch, and 8-inch. This time, Japanese technique is mid-strolling, jig head rig, and Sakamata Shad. This technique is shaking, and this bait is rolling. And this technique is first time tap.
So if you notice how soft his rod is. This rod is a complete noodle. So that's the thing you notice when you're watching Japanese anglers fish these strolling type baits, is they are using a really soft rod. They're not using a medium.
Last thing, and next, shaking. Shake and little bit leading.
Shaking it really lightly.
No wind time, rod is this.
Rod tip down in the wind. Rod tip up if it's calm.
Time, tip is down, the shaking. This bait is suspend fish very good. And the largemouth and the smallmouth bass and spotted bass is very good.
All right, so I wanted to play that video because that is how I decided to start fishing this bait, was using a soft whippy rod, not putting a lot of shake on the rod. You're not like shaking this rod when you're fishing this bait. It's just a light tip. You just want to get that tip wagging a little bit, or waggling a little bit. So I hope that video is helpful. Look for it on DEPS' Instagram account. It's there if you want to go review it again. Maybe I'll just leave a link in the description to get right to that video. So anyway, what are we learning about this bait so far? Number one, throw light heads, very soft rod, let it do its death spiral, and then get good at pulling that line type and shake, tipping, or using the tip of the rod to do the work and not the rod itself. If you can't shake your rod tip and have all that action happening, you need a lighter, softer rod. Now, the rod I like to use is I have a couple rods I like to use. I love using the Medusa. I usually have 2 strolling rod setups on the deck at all times. One with a slightly different bait and different head, and then one. So I like to have 2 different options on strolling baits when I'm out strolling, because you never know what the fish are going to react to. They might want a smaller bait. They might want a bigger one. So the point is, I usually have 2 on the deck, and this is one that's almost always on the deck, and this is the DEPS Gain Element shaking rod. This is specifically for throwing 4, 5, 6-inch Sakamata Shads. The fun part is, this is a 6.6. This is a short rod. This is a 6.6. I want to say it's a medium light S, so it's a stinger tip. So you're going to hear this a lot in the strolling world about stinger tips. So what a stinger tip means, or a solid tip, stinger tip's kind of a nice fishing term, solid tip, stinger tip, is that the front part of this rod is a solid tube. Like there's no tubular construction. Like the bottom part of a rod in most graphite rods is hollow. So they wrap the carbon around a mandrel. They pull the mandrel out, and then you got the rod, and the inside of the rod is like empty. It's hollow. On a solid tip, that's not the case. This is all solid. Solid tips mean that they're more bouncy and soft, and thus you can put action on a strolling bait better with a solid tip rod than just a straight graphite. So the point is, you get a super whippy. Sensitivity wise, I don't think a solid tip is any more sensitive than just a regular tubular, like a regular hollow shaft on a rod. I actually noticed that with my strolling catches, you're not often feeling the bite. It's not like a thunk. Sometimes you do, but often you're just shaking it and you feel that like it's solid. Like there's no more movement going down at the end of the rod. It's just like there's nothing. And then you got to reel down and lean in and start reeling. So the bite detection on a solid tip isn't great, but what's great about solid tip rods for strolling is the ease of putting action onto the bait. I want to go to a quick so if you're curious on my setup, so I'm running a Shimano X-Sense 3000 with 10 pound braid. This is Daiwa J-Berry Grand. And then I run a 8-pound fluorocarbon leader. You don't need a really long leader on strolling setups. In fact, a lot of the Bassmaster Elite Japanese anglers, they use a leader that's like this long. Like they use a very short leader from the braid to the leader to the strolling bait. So you don't think you need a big giant leader. Definitely don't. I've used different lengths and they've all been fine. But anyway, I want to show you a catch video real quick on this. Before I talk, I'm going to dive into the terminal next, but I want to show you this catch video since we're talking about the rod and the technique. I'm going to go back over to the laptop here. All right, so this is Wisconsin Lake. I was smallmouth fishing. This particular spot was about 10 to 12 feet along a bank. There's sand. There's a little patches of grass here and there, and the smallmouth were kind of cruising around this like patchy grass in about 10 to 12 foot of water. And I'm using the depths gain element. So here, let's get the cast. Now, there's a very key piece of this that I want to talk about. When I threw that bait out, notice what I'm not doing? I am not closing the bail. When I teach people to stroll effectively, when you make a cast and you're dialing in a specific spot on your forward-facing sonar, when you throw that bait out, leave that bail open and let that bait free spool down to where you want it. If you close the bail, you're not giving the death spiral enough extra line, and that can actually, your death spiral can go until it gets tight on the line because you close the bail, and then it'll stop. So my point is, if you're forward-facing sonar and you're strolling with the Sakamata Shad, fire the bait out, just sit there. Don't close the bail, leave it open. When you're watching your sonar and you're forward-facing display, when the bait gets to the depth you want, then you close it and you reel. So if you notice, I fire it out, I don't close the bail. Very important. I always correct people on this when I teach people how to do this on my boat, and when they make that cast and then they close the bail, I go, leave it open, don't touch it, let it fall, do its thing, because often you're going to get a bite on that fall. So when that bait falls down, there's especially smallmouth, the smallmouth are gonna attack the Sakamata. They're seeing it come down and they're in like, all right, attack mode. And they're going to come over and eat it right away on the fall. So if you interrupt the death spiral, you might trigger that fish to not bite. Because I've actually had situations where the bait's swirling and then I shake the rod and I put some action into the bait and a fish will be looking at it. And as soon as the bait stops falling dead and goes upright and starts shaking, that fish is like, and runs away. I've had that happen many times. It's funny because if a fish is interested in the death spiral, and they don't attack it on the death spiral, sometimes pulling in the line and twitching it will actually spook the fish and they run away. So point is, give it that death spiral as long as you can. So it's falling. I didn't close the bail yet. When it gets to the spot, there I close it. Shake, shake, shake. I'm strolling it over this grass. Got it hit. That easy. Hook sets on this bait are just reel. You just want to lift and reel. Because a lot of these heads that you're using with Sakamata Shads are very light wire. So you don't need to jack them.
Roamer on about 10 foot of water.
Let the fish fight. Let the soft tip of the rod do the work. I loosen my drag up a little extra on these because if I notice I have my drag too tight, you can pull the hook out of their mouth. So I want kind of a looser drag on this. So a loose drag plus a spongy rod, you're going to have a lot better landing ratios.
There we go. Nice fat one. Holy cow.
Nice fish. This is just a couple weeks ago. All right. So the reason I wanted to show that was a couple things. I hope you learned a few things. Number one, when you make the cast, let the bail stay open. Number two, when it gets to the depth you want, close the bail, get the line tight, and just shake, 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 shake. And when you do get a bite, lift, reel, and just let the fish fight. It might take a while. Don't try and horse it in. If you try to horse in a fish when you're strolling with a light wire head and a soft rod, you can literally pull that bait out of their mouth, or that smallmouth will jump and you're pulling on it too much and that bait will just come out. So if you want to have a really great landing percentage, use a soft rod, do a reel hook set, and just take your time landing it. You're in no hurry. The fish are going to fight for a while. If you're using a good sticky sharp hook, you're going to be fine. All right, so let's talk about, I want to talk a couple about terminal. I know you're here about terminal. Let's talk about heads. So obviously the number one most common head you're going to find with this is the Raid Super Fish Roller. The 1/8 3/0 is probably the most common hook to put on the Sakamata Shad. You pair the 1/8 with the 5-inch, you're good to go. It's definitely a great combination. These hooks are very sharp. I'm going to show you how to rig it real quick. So when you're rigging these, you want to just go straight down the middle. You want to keep the hook kind of up higher in the bait. You don't want to go through you kind of want to keep it towards the back of the bait instead of down the middle. Like, not like you're rigging a Kitech or a paddle tail. You want to keep it pretty close to the top of the bait. And when you get to the little holes in the back, you just pop it through and then you're just sliding her up, and that's it. So you want that hook to be as close to the top of the bait as possible. And then that's simply all you rig it. There are some videos, I've seen some videos of people telling you to rig your Sakamata Shads where you're putting the bait, the ball head higher, like it's up here, and you kind of jab into the back of the bait and you have that head up like this. Do not do that. I've tried fishing it like this with the head above the, like instead of at the front, like instead of here where it's supposed to be, I've tried it up here and it completely screws up the action. You cannot get that sucker to roll. It looks really weird in the water. So whatever viral videos you may have seen on like TikTok or Instagram Reels where it's like, hey, put your Sakamata Shad, rig it down the head a little bit. Ignore it. Don't do that. Rig it like this. That's all you need right there. Okay, so the range roller heads are great. There's a 3/16 and a 3/0. I'm sorry, there's a 3/16 and a 1/8. Oh, sorry, that was the wrong one. Back to the 1/8. Okay, so there's a 1/8 and a 3/0 and a 3/16 and a 3/0. You can basically get those two heads and be fine. I find that the 3/16 is great when there's windy or it's really the wind's blowing a little bit and you need that bait to get down. You can't sit and wait for it because you're trying to keep your boat position and going. But I would say the 1/8 is definitely my most common size. Now, the size hook to use. You don't need to use a 3/0 on these 5-inch Sakamata Shads. One thing I've learned is that a smaller hook, and as long as it is sharp, is just as good and actually gives you really great action. So actually downsizing the hook from a 3/0 to even a 1/0 on a 5-inch Sakamata Shad is totally fine. In fact, I found a couple of great heads specifically for that. So obviously the range rollers are good. I'll leave links down to these in the description if you want to pick these up. Totally great heads. Awesome. They work really good. Another one I really like is this 3/32 1/0. This is also a great head if you want to go even lighter. This works with 5-inch. This works with 4-inch. I would say like this is a good alternative size to use if you don't want to use the 3, which you can. But if you want to have something that can go across the 4-inch Sakamata Shads and the 5-inch, definitely go for something in a 1/0 like this 3/32. Totally legit as well. Okay, away from the range roller heads, other heads that are great. These Hayabusa multi-use heads are excellent and they come in a smaller size. So specifically, I want to call out the 1/0 1/8 in the Hayabusa multi-use. These things are super sharp. They have a really great rolling action, just like the range rollers. So I'd say they're kind of like the range rollers. They're just in a slightly smaller package. So this is the Hayabusa multi-use head. It kind of has that keeled design around the eye right there. These things are crazy sharp. And I have no problems throwing this 1/0 1/8 ounce on a 5-inch. This also works great on a 4-inch. So don't be afraid to throw a 1/0, a 2/0, and a 3/0 on a 5-inch. All of them work perfectly fine as long as you're using a quality sticky sharp hook and you're using a soft rod that can keep them pinned. Okay, so anyway, I like the Hayabusa multi-use heads. They come in lots of different sizes, different shapes. I have the 1/8 ounce 1/0, which is great. If you want to go a little deeper and it's a little windier, I have this 3/16 2/0 is also great to throw on 5-inch Sakamata Shads. Completely legit, excellent alternatives to the range roller. You can't not talk about DEPS's own head that they have for mid-strolling, which is called the DEPS Midst head. So MIDST. Now these come in grams. So the 3.5 gram is basically a 1/8 ounce. So if you want something similar, this comes in a 2/0 as well. And I have one of these right here. What's nice about the Midst heads is they do come with a weed guard. So they do come with a weed guard on them, but you just rock the weed guard back and forth and it snaps right off. I've never found a situation where I need a weed guard on a strolling bait. So, but yeah, this is the DEPS head. The big difference between the DEPS head is it has a horizontal line tie. So the line tie goes across instead of vertical like this. I don't know if that makes a difference. When I stroll with the DEPS Midst head versus the range roller, action, everything looks pretty much the same. This is a light wire hook as well. Just like, I don't know where my Sakamata Shad. Where'd it go? Set it down. Okay, anyway, great head. So the other head I want to talk about, and it's kind of a sneaky one, is the Great Lakes Finesse heads are excellent for Sakamatas. I know they're small, they're very dainty, but Great Lakes has a 1/8 ounce 1/0 head that's very similar to the multi-use head, and that thing is sticky sharp. It's actually been one of my favorite heads to use. This isn't the 1/8 ounce. This is a 1/16, so it's a little smaller. But these Great Lakes Finesse heads are so freaking sharp and sticky. I have caught 4 or 5 pound smallmouth in deep water with this little hook on a 5-inch Sakamata Shad, and great landing percentage. Like these fish do not come unpegged from these, and they have really great plastic keepers as well. So totally legit. The Great Lakes Finesse. Don't be afraid of using a 1/0 hook. That's one of the big lessons I've learned fishing the 5-inch Sakamata Shad a ton, is that you can go with teeny tiny small heads and you're fine. Because when smallmouth and largemouth, when they eat the Sakamata Shad, they inhale it. It's in their mouth, and it doesn't matter. You don't really need a big giant head or a big heavy open gauge hook for catching these things. You can absolutely get it done with a 1/0. So recap: range roller, excellent. DEPS Midst head, excellent. Great Lakes Finesse head, excellent. And then the Hayabusa multi-use head, also excellent. Those are my main 4 jig heads I would use for throwing Sakamata Shads. A dark horse in this is, I wish it came in a smaller size, but these Buckeye Gerald Swindle G-Stroll heads, I picked up a pack of these on a whim, and I'm like, I'm gonna try these out because it's maybe a little more accessible. I think these things are a little cheaper, and they have a very similar design to the multi-use heads. So these multi-use heads and these Buckeye heads are pretty similar, but it has that keeled, the lead goes up over the eyelet, so it's got that keeled look. And it's got a little bit of a O'Shaughnessy hook. The only difference, or the only downside to these, is they don't have a 1/8 ounce option. The lightest one that they sell is a 3/16, which is what I have here. So also, if you're going to throw 3/16 and you want to throw a little deeper, I can definitely vouch the Buckeye G-Stroll heads are excellent. They roll really well. They are sharp. They definitely, landing ratio is excellent. I can also 100% vouch for this head. 2 heads that I don't like so much. The LG Horizon heads, these are like big O'Shaughnessy style hooks. I believe I'm saying that right. I have bad landing percentage hookup. I don't have a great landing hookup percentage. No, I have a good hookup percentage. I don't have a great landing percentage. For some reason, these heads, fish jump off and throw these things all the time. I don't know if it's because the gauge or the hook is so wide. I mean, look at the bite. Like that thing is like, you can put your whole fingertip in here and like tons of room. But I've gotten bit on this head, and I've had big smallmouth, like the 3-4 pound smallmouth. They'll jump and this hook just goes flying. I don't know. I think maybe it's that I'm using too light of rods for this, and you got to jack the hook a little more because it's kind of a bigger, badder hook. I know a lot of people love these hooks, and these hooks are very popular. But to me, the LG Gamakatsu Horizon heads I don't throw them anymore. I'd be happy to give this pack to someone, because these are, I've lost enough fish on these LG Horizon heads that I don't have a lot of faith in them, where I have a ton of faith in the other heads that I was talking about. And the other type of hook I don't like, and this isn't really calling out the specific brand, but it's just more like the style of hook, is these like cipher fishing. I will say, because the Sakamata Shads are so soft, they're very soft, they have a lot of salt. Hook heads that have this kind of plastic keeper chew the crap out of your head. I definitely can't vouch for these Cypher heads. I know Cypher makes other heads that don't have this dramatic of a weed guard. But my point is, if you pick up a pack of plastics that has this bitey of a weed or of a plastic keeper, not a weed guard, sorry. If it's got this dramatic of a plastic keeper, not going to be great for your Sakamata shads because you're going to tear the crap out of the head of the bait before you even get it in the water. I've ripped baits just putting this head on before I even fished it. I'm like, at $11 a pack, you get 6 of them. I'm not using a head that's going to literally tear the bait's head open before you even cast. So definitely stay away from bait or heads like this. This type of head would be much better on the like Z-Man jerk shads or one of those Elastec baits that have a really stretchy and you really can pull it over. This head would be excellent for an Elastec bait, like Striking Z2 or the scented jerk shads. That is where I would use this head. Don't use it on a super soft bait that tears really easily like the Sakamata shad. Anyway, so those are my favorite heads. A couple heads I would probably stay away from. I'm going to talk colors real quick. Now, DEPS has a lot of colors on the Sakamata shad, and the reality is they almost all work. I really haven't had a situation where I throw a color and a fish won't bite it or eat it, but they have some really great colors, and I think you got to kind of look at what your forage is, what colors kind of fish go after in your neck of the woods. This is Golden Shiner. This is probably one of my favorites because this mimics a lot of types of forage and fish that are up here in the North Country. So if I had to throw one color all the time, I'd probably pick the Golden Shiner here. So the Shiner colors they have black on the top and then super sparkly bodies. There's also this one called Reservoir Shad. I have really great luck on this Reservoir Shad, especially in clear water. This is a great color. Honestly, get any Sakamata shad in any color, you're probably going to get bit. But yeah, Golden Shiner is really good. Reservoir Shad is awesome. This one is probably one of the easiest ones to like find. I think you see these packs the most, and this is the Neon Pepper, like the Pepper Shad. This has got some flake in it. It's got the black. It looks very bait fishy. I use this one a lot. I've caught a lot of fish on this specific color. Also, just a good bread and butter color. This one is hard to find. This is the Indie Sagi. This is a really cool color where it's glitter and pearl, but it has kind of a purple blue back. This color is really hard to find. It's one of the colors that don't come in stock very often. So if you can get your hands on some Indie Sagi colors, definitely do that. I think this color was influenced by Indie Fishing, this guy on Instagram who does a lot of JDM content. I think this is his color specifically, or he suggested this color and they came out with it. So Indie Sagi is great. This one is the Wakasaki, I think. So it's the non-flaked version of the Wakasaki. There's like a Buiko, I don't know how to pronounce things in Japanese, I apologize. But the Biko Wakasagi has flake, and this is the regular Wakasagi that has no flake. This just looks like regular baitfish as well. These are also good colors. And then, of course, Hook Up Tackle has their own custom color called Boner, or Boner, or whatever they call it. So it's really, it's a black. Here, let's take this one out. They just dropped this. This is the first, I think, shop custom color in the DEPS Sakamata shad. So this is, I haven't thrown this one yet. I just got these packs the other day. Let's pop it open and just take a peek. But yeah, this is a frosted white color with a lot of flake and pearl in the belly. So this is actually a really cool color. So yeah, really, really shiny, really glittery, frosted white on the top and kind of a more see-through white on the bottom. So anyway, this is the Hook Up Tackle's official color. I think they're already sold out of them. They'll probably get more, so keep your eye open for that if you want to grab one of these like exclusive, one shop gets this color. So anyway, I think I've covered most of the things I want to cover in this video. We talked about terminal tackle. We talked about what are some of the superpowers. Let me address the hype real quick as we close this out. I want to talk about the hype. The reason these things are hyped is because when they drop, DEPS does not constantly produce these things. Big shipments come over a couple times a year. Certain shops have DEPS accounts. These shops get in the DEPS Sakamata shad and they sell out almost instantly. A lot of people pre-order and like, get me a box, and they kind of earmark a bunch of the shipment for people who have pre-ordered or have special connections to the shop, like Shop Pros and things like that. And then the rest of them go up online. People scoop them up. The hype kind of comes into this bait because there has been desperate people who pay big bucks for these at the ramp at tournaments. Like I've heard stories where people will literally pay like $50 a pack to someone to give them 1 pack of Sakamata Shad so they can use it on a tournament day, because these things are very soft. You blow through these after 1 or 2 fish. They're like Senkos because they're salted. They're very soft. They have a lot of action on these baits. You do blow through a pack pretty quickly if they're biting them pretty good. And I know people will absolutely overpay for the confidence in these baits. So there is some hype in that there's like a weird resale market on these packs where people are like, oh, I got packs for $10. You really want them on the tournament? I'll sell it to you a pack for 40. And people are literally buying that. So do I think it's worth paying more than retail for these baits? Absolutely not. There's a lot of really great alternatives to strolling baits out there. However, it's up to you, right? If you really want these things and you want to pay resale, it's your money. Go do what you want. Do I think you should pay resale for these? No. You just have to be patient and wait for the different Sakamata drops that happen as the year goes on. So there'll be like a spring drop, there might be a summer drop, there might be a fall drop. So wait around till shops you know carry them, get them, buy a bunch, and hopefully stock up on them and have them in your arsenal as you go. That's what I do. I just, every time they pop up, I buy a bunch, I throw them in a box, and I just kind of have a backlog of these things. So I'm not like freaking out when I need a pair or I need a pack of these. So anyway, don't buy into the hype. It's not the most fish-catching bait of all time, but it is a fantastic top of the line, one of the best strolling baits out there. Does get bit. It's very good bait. I hope I've given you a lot of information. I know this video is running a little long, but I wanted to make the ultimate deep dive on the Sakamata Shad, and hopefully I've done it. If you got any comments, go down in the comments on this video. Say which colors are your favorite, what's your favorite heads, what rods do you use? I'd like to hear some of your favorite DEPS Sakamata rigging techniques and gear setups. So I'll leave links for all this stuff down in the comments of this video, or down in the description of this video. A lot of stuff will be available on Omnia. And if you're out there trying to find Sakamata Shads, happy hunting. I hope you find some packs, and we'll see you in the next video.